Welcome, age of vintage society. In his prime, Dean Martin was the dude everyone wanted to know, right next to Frank Sinatra. He was a movie star, he had a TV show, and he was one of the most captivating vocalists of all time. It's no secret that with a multi-talented guy like Dean, his work sold in the millions. Dean's got quite the backstory, however. Were Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra in love with each other? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Dean Martin, the king of cool, the dude everyone wanted to know. He personified tall, dark and handsome. He was the king of cool. His baritone made women swoon, and his effortless charm made men want to mimic him. He was the wingman to Old Blue Eyes, an MVP of the Rat Pack. Dean Martin goes beyond the simple caricature of the boozy lounge singer with a penchant for racy humour to reveal the substantive man behind that mask, but the crooner purposely used humour to hide his shyness. Are you curious as to how he was off stage? If you couldn't tell by the name, Martin grew up in a very Italian family. Dean Martin was actually born Dino Paul Crocetti. He was born to an Italian father, Gaetano Alfonso Crocetti, a barber, and an Italian-American mother, Angela. He didn't speak English until he was 5 years old. He attended Grant Elementary School in Steubenville, where he was bullied for his broken English. He then dropped out of Steubenville High School in the 10th grade because he thought he was smarter than his teachers. He worked odd jobs, including a part-time job as an amateur welterweight boxer under the name Kid Crotchet. In order to make ends meet, he and his roommate Sonny King, who was also trying to build a career in show business, used to hold bare-knuckle boxing matches in their apartment. The fights wouldn't end until someone passed out. People paid them for such matches. Martin once joked that of his 12 professional fights he lost 11. His record as a welterweight was a little better, 26-11. Most times he couldn't even afford tape for his hands, and frequently broken knuckles forced him to rethink his career path. He also dabbled in illegal activities, including driving liquor across state lines during Prohibition, selling lottery tickets, acting as a bookie, and working as a card dealer and croupier in local gambling joints. He later took up the drums as a hobby as a teenager. He began his show business career at age 17, singing in Ohio nightclubs near his hometown. During a stint with the Ernie Mackay Band, he was noticed by Cleveland band leader Sammy Watkins, who hired him as the band's featured vocalist. He began touring with Watkins in 1938 and in 1940 changed his name to Dean Martin. Martin got into show business one step at a time. Starting as a stock boy at an underground casino in Steubenville, he worked his way up to blackjack dealer, then croupier at the roulette table, and finally a singer at the casino's lounge. In 1943 he was hired to perform as an open act at the Rio Bamba nightclub in New York City. With a fixed nose and a boost from his pals in the nightclub underworld, he became Dean Martin, styling himself after the top male vocalist of the time, Bing Crosby, and met Frank Sinatra in New York. The headliner that evening was Frank Sinatra. By all accounts, Martin bombed. The star offered to help him get a leg up in the industry, but Martin told him he wanted to do it himself, though he made sure to let him know how appreciative he was for the invite. Their friendship started to blossom several years later. During an engagement in Atlantic City, New Jersey in 1946, he and another performer, comedian Jerry Lewis, began clowning around during each other's acts. This led to an immensely successful comedy partnership that featured Martin as a suave straight man and Lewis as an immature clown. Although Martin and his longtime partner in comedy were a dream team for many years, they didn't exactly start out as such. In fact, their first performance together was actually bad. Very, very bad. The club owner where they were performing told them after their first act that they needed to think of something else for the second act, and fast, because otherwise they were out. They rearranged some things within their act and were able to pull it together. Before long, the two left New York for Hollywood. They made 16 motion pictures together, beginning with My Friend Irma and ending with Hollywood or Bust. Anita Ekberg, Kim Novak, Shirley MacLaine, Janet Leigh, Deborah Kerr, Judy Holliday accompanied with their beauty and charm the Italian-American in the cinema world. In addition to the movies in tandem with Lewis, Dean Martin starred in Rio Bravo alongside John Wayne, Kiss Me Stupid with Billy Wilder, and Airport. Though the film industry gave him a lot of satisfaction, his real great success was in music, thanks to his inborn vocation. Unlike other Italian-American singers of his generation, Dean Martin always kept his Italian roots alive, and his That's Amore is an all-time success. Martin wasn't the only person in his family to have gotten his fair share of the spotlight. His daughter Gina married Beach Boys guitarist, singer Carl Wilson. The two were together for a couple of years before ultimately deciding to break things off. At one point, Dean married Olympic gold medal skater Dorothy Hamill. She was Martin's second wife, though the two called it quits in the mid-1980s. His son Dean married actress Olivia Hussey, and his other son Craig married the daughter of a famous comedian. As a solo act, Martin opened at the Sands in 1957. His loose, easy style and his cunning way with a ballad cemented his status as one of the strip's most popular performers. Soon he signed a 5-year contract with the Sands. Martin proved to be a top-notch comic in his own right, and his solo shows at the Copa always featured a showgirl wheeling out a drink cart stocked with bourbon and Scotch bottles. "I don't drink any more, and I don't drink any less," Martin would announce, although his seemingly excessive drinking was viewed as more of a prop than a reality. On some shows, celebrities actually drink liquor, and even though it may have appeared that Dean Martin did so on a number of occasions, it turns out he was just pretending. According to his daughter, most of the time when you'd see a drink in his hands, it was only apple juice. But his initiation into the Rat Pack was still years away, and well after a decade-long music-comedy partnership with Jerry Lewis that ended in 1956. After working to make a name for himself as a singer in Las Vegas, he entered the world of acting on screen. First he appeared in 1958's Some Came Running, alongside Frank Sinatra. Then he made his television debut in 1964 as the host of his own show. He worked as a roast master on the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, joking with other celebrities and politicians, etc. The show aired from 1974 to 1984 and was initially created to breathe some new life back into Martin's career, which seemed to be in somewhat of a lull in 1973. As members of the Rat Pack in the late 1950s and early 1960s, Frank, Dean and the other members, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop and Peter Lawford, enjoyed phenomenal success as entertainers. He starred in several films with Jerry Lewis and belonged to the Rat Pack. In 1960, Martin appeared with the band for legendary shows known as the Summit at the Sands. Although well rehearsed, these Rat Pack shows were seemingly free-form, featuring all manner of high jinks, such as Martin lifting Davis under his arm and thanking the NAACP for this award. Not soon after, Martin's affiliation with Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. and the rest of the fabled Rat Pack supplanted his earlier rep. He fueled his image as a boozing playboy in onstage antics with his pals, and ring-a-ding ensemble films like Ocean's 11, yet Martin later claimed his cocktail-swilling persona was largely a pose. Though he left Capitol to sign with Sinatra's fledgling Reprise label, Martin capped his tenure there with a bang, releasing 2 classic singles, showcasing him at the height of his powers. In the 1950s, Martin and Sinatra were as close as brothers, according to multiple sources. Frank loved Dean's bold personality, and the two had a lot of fun together over the years. They not only worked together on the Rat Pack, but they were also in 8 films together, plus they both had their gambling licenses, and loved them some Vegas. In 1960, the original Ocean's 11 hit the scene, and people were not disappointed. Martin filmed the hit with 4 other members of the Rat Pack. Although he had the image of a swinger, Dean always hated parties. "I was shy," he said candidly. Another time Dean said, "I was ashamed of the way I spoke." Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra were more than compadres. They were brothers who found each other at a time when Hollywood was seeping with glitz and glamour and clamoured for larger-than-life personalities to entertain. Ask anyone who saw the two Rat Packers perform together. They had a natural chemistry that came from a deep place. They fed off each other and spun gold every time. Dean with a perpetual twinkle in his eyes, and Frank with a mischievous grin. To watch them on stage together was brilliant because you could see the love in their eyes, the respect for each other, daughter Dino Martin said. The two even had matching pinky rings Frank had made for them, each with an emerald-cut diamond. Dean never took his off. Friends for more than 40 years, the legendary performers who made Los Angeles, Las Vegas and Palm Springs their stomping grounds were formidable on stage, often making each other laugh during comedy bits. A straight face was a rarity when those two were together. It was as if there was a perpetual inside joke between the two. "If you were a girl, I would probably go for you. Darn it, why aren't you a girl?" Dean asked Frank in one of their funnier television skits. The two sat on a park bench, Dean holding a bouquet of roses for Frank after a dating computer blindly set them up because they apparently were perfect for each other. "You've even got the sense of humour I like," reiterated Dean, a skit likely created to play off their affinity for each other. As the skit closes, both of them are chuckling and doing the tango, while the live audience erupts in laughter. They just played off each other. They just had fun. But Martin reportedly was having kidney troubles while on the road and therefore had to call it quits early in the tour. No one knows if this is true or if Martin was just trying to get out of the rest of the tour. The Rat Pack era ended with Sinatra breaking with Lawford over relations with John F. Kennedy. Lawford's marriage to the president's sister was in trouble, and Kennedy distanced himself from Sinatra over controversies surrounding the singer, including his alleged mob connections. Another factor in the demise of the Rat Pack was the change in ownership at the Sands, with Howard Hughes taking over and imposing restrictions on their budget and behaviour. Sinatra left in 1968, moving to Caesar's Palace, and in 1969 Martin signed a $200,000 per week contract with the Riviera Hotel, where he was a part owner and entertainment consultant. He also did well in movies and television. He filmed 4 Matt Helm comic spy films. He also signed a long-term contract to play the 1,200-seat Celebrity Room at the MGM Grand Hotel in 1973. However, by the 1980s his life began to take tragic turns. His kidneys began to fail, and in 1987 disaster struck when his son, Dean Paul, died in a California Air National Guard plane crash. Martin quickly lost his zest for life. Blaming his kidney ailment, he skipped most of a concert reunion tour with Sinatra and Davis. Liza Minnelli filled in, but continued to work at the MGM, by then renamed Bally's, with diminishing results. He looked gaunt and barely recognisable, struggling through his hits, and sometimes doubling over in pain due to what he termed a bad hot dog. He sometimes would send members of the audience to the exits when he would sob about the loss of his son. "Why, God, why didn't you take me instead?" Martin made his last Las Vegas appearance in 1990 and died on Christmas Day, 1995. His last major tour with friends Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. was his swan song. No one can deny Martin was a multi-talented entertainer. He is in fact the only person to have ever been given 3 separate stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, one each for film, television and music. Dean Martin was a heavy smoker for most of his life. By 16 he was chain-smoking, and he often couldn't go on stage without a drink in one hand and a cigarette in another. He continued to smoke until he was 76, even after showing signs of COPD in his early 60s. His cancer diagnosis in September 1993 forced him to give up the habit. As the illness progressed, doctors at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center told him the only way to prolong his life expectancy would be to undergo surgery on his kidneys and liver. He declined. His career wound down in the 1980s. He died of complications from emphysema in 1995 on Christmas Day. However, he left behind a legacy of being one of the most celebrated performers to grace a stage in Las Vegas or elsewhere. Las Vegas Strip hotels dimmed their lights in his honour, and in 2005 a portion of Industrial Road just west of the Strip was renamed Dean Martin Drive. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Dean Martin?